Today's episode is what I call the Barnacle edition. We review Elon Musk indicated that there are a number of barnacles in the form of employees that need to be scraped from the bottom of Tesla as part of the program. So you'll notice behind me, we're at Anacostia Park in the Washington, D.C. area, and the boat theme seemed appropriate. The second issue we cover today is that the head of Daimler Benz's truck division, Mr. Daum, has indicated that they have solutions when it comes to trucks that are electric that are being tested, but after 3 years, they actually don't know what happens or they're confused. And so I think this confusion is running across all the major competitors to Tesla, and we're going to review sort of what this confusion is about and how it plays out relative to Tesla's short and long-term future. The third thing we reviewed today is one of my loyal viewers and Patreon supporters has asked us to continue to review what's going on with Tesla software and sort of any updates we might be able to provide. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is the first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a returning visitor, welcome back. Please also note we do have a couple of ads usually in our videos. We'd appreciate it if you'd take time to watch versus skip, because those funds help us support the maintenance and growth of our channel. And we're really working hard to get some new camera equipment so we can do a better job all around for you. We're a little bit late on our start today because I thought that the Barnacle edition required water and it was a little bit more challenging to get positioned. And tripod is obviously not cooperating as we would have liked. So, first of all, this is the Barnacle edition because Tesla, in the form of Elon Musk, is really working on challenges related to how he's going to operate as a management entity. When it comes to sort of middle managers and up, Tesla hires some great people. And they ask a lot of them, and they're doing a great job, and they're well compensated both in stock and regular compensation. When we're at the mid-level management down, Tesla is really, and Elon Musk was really hoping to just have robots replace everybody, and that way he can not, in essence, deal with that section of the business, and it hasn't worked out. Now, I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed in him because calling some of these people barnacles is not the way to get them to work harder to deliver some of the number goals that Tesla has. Plus, he knows, so his basic argument was they were firing a bunch of people, and the notice was in essence a weekend before they would find out if they were being fired. I think it's good to keep changing out people to make sure you have good folks working for you. In most companies, they basically have a review process where the bottom 10% of companies, employees, for example, at GM are terminated, and folks know about that ahead of time, and they're working hard to meet the performance goals of their positions. And I really feel like the fact that Elon is sort of introducing suddenly this, he's suddenly introducing this I'm firing everybody on Monday thing is really hard on people. And if you're an hourly worker who needs that paycheck, do you start looking elsewhere if you're good? Because you can't rely on whether or not Elon might wake up one side of the bed and decide you're gone versus the other side of the bed and you're sticking around and having a good experience. The next thing, so in general, I think changing out employees is good, but from a management standpoint, calling people barnacles and firing them with a day's notice, I think is a little harsh and not conducive to a great working environment, which I think that's what it takes to get the best from your people, and I hope Tesla will make a change in what they're doing here. The next thing I wanted to cover today is what I call the Daimler, BMW, VW, and even GE confusion. What this is about is that Mr. Daum, who heads up the truck division of Tesla, indicated that, well, to be honest with you, after the 3-year period and the trucks have been run, we actually don't know what happens, because with current trucks, there's a certain number of miles the trucks are put on, and then there's a secondary market of used trucks that those trucks are sold into. What then happens is that, they might go for X more miles, use capacity before they're destroyed. The issue that Daimler, Etal, BMW, et cetera, are having is what's called battery degradation. So, as we all know, over time, batteries will, a portion of the cells will die, and those cells won't be rejuvenated, and so therefore, you just get less range over time. So it's my belief that most of the trucks Daimler is putting out right now, even the cars are starting off with 100-ish miles. It might be 130 miles, it might be 140, or it might be slightly less. I somehow have managed, I've managed to catch a freight train at the wrong time. So I'll show you the train that's going by. Oh, this is not good. I'm not going to a view setting here. Admit that I didn't expect that. It was nice and quiet, and now we've gone a heavy-duty train, and I'm hoping that we get to the end of it quickly. Wow. That thing's noisy. Wow. So I'm reluctant to keep speaking because I know you guys are going to say you can't hear me, and I would agree. I totally agree with you. I think what I'm going to do is kind of move away, see if we can get a little bit quieter. Wow. Wow, now we have. So, in continuing, what I was really wanting to get at is the whole idea that battery degradation is a huge problem, and Tesla, as we all know, has really been focused on this and has the least battery degradation of any of the large companies. In fact, a lot of people after 5 years are experiencing as little as 5 or 10% battery degradation, which is not a huge deal. So I bring this up today because basically one of the other competitive disadvantages that Daimler and others are having against Tesla is, for example, a Tesla truck is going, let's say, 300 miles before it needs to be charged. That truck is going for 1 million miles in terms of guarantees from Tesla. In the case of Daimler in particular, their trucks are going 124 miles when they start. And so what's interesting to me is that basically that 124 miles after 3 years becomes 50 or 60 miles. And once you're at 50 or 60 miles, any hiccups and you're at a 30-mile range. So pretty much their trucks are non-usable, non-sellable after 3 or 4 years when it comes to electric. So where the confusion is that Daimler continues to chip away at Tesla's advantage. But the problem they're having is that by the time those vehicles are ready to be sold or go to the used market after 3 years, they're no longer usable. So I think this is an interesting problem. I think it's interesting how it's being framed by all of Tesla's major competitors, and I think it's unfortunate, and I hope they close this gap because Tesla doesn't have the capacity to produce the number of cars and trucks that the marketplace needs each year, and so I thought it was a big deal. Wow. Yeah. I also wanted to note to you guys that I'm probably going to delay responding because once we go to the regular viewers, most people have stated that they actually don't like me responding in the middle, and so I'll respond to all your inquiries and questions at the end. So the next thing that I wanted to share with you or review is one of my most ardent supporters, both on Patreon as well as viewers, has been asking me about Tesla software. And there's sort of empirical evidence and factual evidence. So first, I want you guys to start mentally recording news of Tesla accidents and kind of what's going on in that capacity. And by the way, the sun is hitting me hard, but it turns out this angle is the best for the camera view, so I'm squinting a little bit. My apologies. So I wanted to note that there's an interesting phenomenon going on, which is like the last 3 or 4 Tesla accidents that were listed all included cars running into fixed objects, either parked cars or freeway abutments or all kinds of things. I think this is part of the Tesla conversation about software, because I've been covering a little bit of software, in particular when there are things that we can focus on that we can see definitively, and when some of my viewers start giving me flaming commentary, I can just say, I reference you to X so that you can see it and understand what I just said and why I said it. So my reticence in the software realm is there's all kinds of software in every car, and especially Tesla. And Tesla actually considers itself, according to the CTO, a software company driven by its software relationships and capabilities in Silicon Valley and the training of the executives at the company. So with this in mind, the question comes up, why are we having so many problems with the autopilot? So I wanted to note that basically there's an interesting problem out there, which is Elon has a thing going where he likes to, the nature of his management process is there'll be an initiative that Tesla wants to do, particularly when it comes to software. So I met with an executive who's a good friend of mine and advisor to our channel, and he has a PhD in computer science, and he worked for Oracle Corporation for many years, and he explained that there are different types of managers when it comes to software. One of the types of managers like Elon is basically there'll be an initiative, there'll be an initiative coming out, and what'll occur is that he'll ask them how long it's going to take. So they'll say, Elon, this is going to take us 2 years to do. So Elon will say, I want it in 8 months. So to put pressure on those managers, not only will Elon announce to them that he wants it in 8 months, but he'll announce to the world, we're going to be finished with this in 8 months, and it's going to be terrific. So now you have this scramble going on. Everybody knew it was going to take 2 years. So how do we get to 2 years? Well, a great example of that is the autopilot software. When the split occurred with Mobileye and Tesla, Elon announced that with the 8 sensors and other things that Tesla was doing, the Tesla solution for autopilot on the software side was better than Mobileye already, so it was no big deal if they broke up. So 3 months later, they broke up, and then Tesla started putting its own autopilot software in the vehicles. This is starting to be January of 2017. When users got a hold of this, they were like, uh-oh, this thing doesn't work properly. So those users waited as the upgrades systematically added back in features that had been available for Mobileye with the Model S's and X's for quite a while. In fact, one of my most shocking empirical experiences was I drove a Model X before the switch to Tesla when it was a Mobileye-based system. And then I drove the same vehicle 3 weeks later once they switched out to Tesla's Tesla Vision, basically Autopilot 2 everything. And basically, it was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had in my life, because I went into the basement of the building in Washington, D.C. to go drive the Model X, the new one. And so I looked at the person, and I was like, well, why don't you just summon the car and so we can go? And she's like, oh no, we can't do that anymore. I was like, what do you mean we can't do that? Well, basically, in Autopilot 1, you can summon your vehicle and it'll pull out of the parking space and present itself so you can jump in. And that was not available in Autopilot 2 at the front end. I think now I need to go drive it again, but I think now it's readily available because they figured that thing out. But what this illustrates is the fact that, Tesla slash Elon Musk is ambitious guy, really wants to move quickly. But the problem is that there's a lot of stuff that they put out, both hardware and software, that tends to be not ready for prime time. It's out too early. And so as a result, you're waiting for updates to get this right. And they're finding out there might be issues that are lurking. And I think this whole parked car thing, based on the empirical data of the number of vehicles that have crashes in that fashion, suggests to me, those of you who use it regularly may want to be mindful of, how it performs around fixed objects as we're seeing more and more crashes in that space. The another thing that's sort of software related that I think is kind of interesting is that I wanted to encourage you guys to consider making sure you don't take over-air updates and that you get your updates via your Wi-Fi if possible. And the reason is that if there are bugs, etc., introduced by people on the over-air, you don't have to worry about it because your Wi-Fi is delivering to your car in your garage your updates. And I just think that's safer in case they get hacked. I thought it was interesting, the CTO of Tesla talked about being hacked and the fact that it's simple, we just patch it. And when it's a life or death situation, I'm not interested in patches, nor am I interested in having my car hacked because, it's different if your computer goes down. It's a different deal if your car doesn't work properly and you have an accident. So, do caution in this space. I have to admit that we will start covering software and kind of what's going on from different angles like I've done just now. But again, I have to admit that I'm going to rely on some of my viewers who are software experts to share ideas, including Glenn, who keeps asking about it. And the reason is that unless you're a computer scientist and you can dive into that code as some of our viewers or some of the really sharp guys have, I'm reticent to go into areas that in my 30 years of auto experience, I haven't been diving into heavily, and that frankly, I'm relying on the data we're getting from either executives in the field, and I can't really error test empirically what's going on with those aspects of things. So the final item, and I was going to make this a trivia question at the front of the show, is according to Dave Duff, who's an executive at Tesla, what's the range of battery demands you place on the battery to allow you to have unlimited cycles, meaning you don't have to worry about battery degradation? So that's the trivia question of the day. I'm going to break here and let you figure it out. Answer is between 30 and 80% usage is the ideal. And I kind of asked one of my software guys, well, why is this usage range so useful to maintain battery life cycles? It turns out that one of the benefits of doing that is that you, in essence, are giving certain cells a rest in between cycles. So you basically are not overusing all the cells. It can choose which cells are being used on that next recycle. And so that's one of the many benefits that come from how you manage this cycle process. So something to think about. Dealing with an electric car slash Tesla is a little bit different than just, your regular machine, just crank it up and it goes all the time. Having some mindfulness about managing your battery life could influence, if and how your vehicle lasts over time. So I glanced there at a few of your questions. Enough respect from Sweden, brethren. Greetings from my Jamaican friend from Sweden, and greetings to others who've said hello. The Trump comments regarding the Iran deal today, oil prices are already up. The answer to Mr. Trump is he really doesn't need to do this, but the only reason that he might introduce the Iran sanctions is there are a number of large oil companies that support Mr. Trump's candidacy. So I think there's a good chance that he puts, he bails on the deal as a way to increase oil prices. So I think that's my general thought on that. The other thing is that every time, what the data shows is that every time oil prices rise, and particularly once they get to a certain level, the number of EVs starts to increase in terms of sales. So my response is that the closer oil gets to 100 bucks, the more EVs that'll be sold. And it's not like there's an abundant available amount of Model 3s or even Model S's and X's anyway. So the rising oil prices and Tesla's sales are almost irrelevant because they can't make enough Model 3s as it is. What says even if the oil prices rose? So, um, so at any rate, I think we've sort of covered our main body of what I wanted to review today. Um, we've covered our Barnacle process at Tesla. We've covered what's happened with battery degradation at Daimler, VW, and BMW, which is, those guys are still behind on this portion of it, but they're doing a better job when it comes to thermal management, etc. And then we've reviewed in general some of the software challenges experienced by Tesla and what's going on with that. Um, Again, I'm at the Anacostia Waterway. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Please take time to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. For our Thursday show, we're going to see how it works out, but I'm really looking forward to diving into the battle between Tesla / Elon Musk and the hedge funds as one of our topics. And I have to admit, I'm pleasantly surprised all the time at what's out there in news for Tesla for us to cover, because it's never a dull moment, and I kind of expected it'd be difficult to keep our show volume going based on things on the table to cover, but there's been no shortage of happenings to bring forward and discuss. Looking forward to any and all comments. Please take time to like and subscribe. We could really use your help on Patreon. We'd like to upgrade equipment as well as keep our show going. Look forward to your comments once again. Tschüss, German. Au revoir, French. Adios, Spanish. Lahitraot, Hebrew. Choda Hafez, Farsi. And Nuf Respect, Walk Good in Jamaican. Have a great day. We look forward to our next conversation.